Coming up on Ask the Tech Guys, Mikah, Sargent, have a review for you. Well, actually, it's 2 reviews of some robotic vacuums that hopefully won't break the bank.
And I am Pruitt, and I'm going to tell you why me, as well as several other people, are quite angry with Google and Google Drive.
And we've got several questions to answer, including one question about LastPass security and a follow-up about why Roku speeds just aren't what they should be. Stay tuned for Ask the Tech Guys.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Ask the Tech Guys with Mikah, Sargent, and Pruitt, episode 1968, recorded Sunday, April 2nd, 2023. See you at the next CIA meeting. This episode of Ask the Tech Guys is brought to you by Lookout. Whether on a device or in the cloud, your business data is always on the move. Minimize risk, increase visibility, and ensure compliance with Lookout's unified platform. Visit lookout.com today.
Thanks for listening to this show. As an ad-supported network, we are always looking for new partners with products and services that will benefit our qualified audience. Are you ready to grow your business? Reach out to advertise@twit.tv and launch your campaign now.
It's time for Ask the Tech Guys. Fireworks. I don't know, chain rattles, explosions, cymbals, etc., etc. This is the show where you call in with your tech questions or email in with your tech questions or, I don't know, write in with your tech questions. And we, the tech guys, try to provide an answer. Leo Laporte is on vacation. So joining me, Mikah, Sargent, across the vast space that is the studio is Pruitt. Hi, Ant.
Hello, sir. How you be?
I be well. How about you?
I am unbelievable as always, and we are in studio. This isn't a Zoom wall that I'm looking at. This is real.
As far as I can tell, could be this is a virtual space that I just haven't figured that out yet. But I think you're there. This is the variety show. I've decided to call it. I think the closest thing that comes to this show is Twig.
Yeah.
That can be kind of a variety show, but we like to talk about a lot of stuff here and also help people out with their gizmos and gadgets. And so while Leo's away, I said, we should definitely have Ant on the show. I mean, you've hung out a few times kind of behind the scenes, right?
All I'm going to say is bless your heart, because man, you guys are so good. I've sat back there behind the cameras and watched the show several times, and just the energy between you two is unmatched. I can't even assume I'm going to match it, but I'm looking forward to being here and having some fun and hopefully dropping a little bit of knowledge for the folks that calls in or send in their questions. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And speaking of which, if you do have questions, if you do want to call in, you just go to call.twit.tv, call.twit.tv. There, you will be connected to our Zoom, and then you'll kind of hang out in the lobby, and we will be able to take your questions live on air. It's funny, I'm looking at the Zoom right now, and it's pretty empty, but then I realized it's not even 11:11 yet, which is typically when we start the show, either 11:11 or later. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't start seeing people pop up until about 11:30.
So that's how that works.
Yeah, exactly. The show's 11. No, it's usually 11:30. But let's get underway, because we do have some great topics to kick things off. And I have to tell you, my mind is kind of blown by the first topic that I want to discuss here today, because it just seems like an all-around bad idea. So GM, General Motors, which makes a number of vehicles, including Chevrolet vehicles, is making an interesting decision with its electronic vehicles, or its electric vehicles. I shouldn't say electronic vehicles. They are planning to essentially forego what we know as kind of the main infotainment systems that exist as sort of third-party infotainment systems. So the way that it works right now, for many folks, is they can use a projection system is kind of how we think of it. Yep. Your phone serves as the sort of computer that passes along the data to your inbuilt dash display or wherever it happens to be in your vehicle. And then depending on which system you're using, be it Android or an Apple iPhone, then you will get Android Auto and CarPlay respectively.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the first thing to understand is I've seen that a lot of folks who aren't steeped in technology, who aren't doing this every day, aren't aware of the fact that it is actually coming from the phone.
Right.
That the system is coming from the phone as opposed to just it being this thing when you plug it in, it like unlocks that part of the car. No, this is a projection system. Your phone passes along that information and shows it on the display.
Now to some of the consumers' credit, a lot of that is poor marketing from the manufacturers, the different car manufacturers, because they will say, and it comes with CarPlay. Mm-hmm. And no, it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Say it comes with, it should say it supports CarPlay or it supports Android Auto. And up to this point, there are many vehicles that do. Lots and lots of vehicles. And if you don't already have it built in, then many third-party systems, you can add aftermarket systems that will support it. Mm-hmm. But GM is planning to cut out support for these third-party infotainment systems, and instead, for its future vehicles, is going to be sticking with a Google infotainment, what they call experience, that is actually then built into the car. And so when I first heard this, I thought, what? Because if there's one sort of category I've seen online a lot, I see ads for it. I see people asking about it a lot. I see different, it's trying to figure out a way to get a Tesla, which does not support Apple's CarPlay, to actually show CarPlay, because people who have iPhones, they do like CarPlay. I like CarPlay. I like being able to use my phone essentially in the car. Yep. So there are all these little dongles and other systems that you can use to do that. And I saw at the end of last year a study, or sort of survey rather, about people who are planning on buying vehicles. And high on the list of reasons or of things that they were looking at before they bought a vehicle was support for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And so this is something that is important to folks, right?
Yeah, for this day and age with people doing a lot of long commutes, it used to be, a decade plus ago, your job was literally around the corner from where you live. That's not the case anymore. Now people are in the car in excess of 30 minutes to an hour every day, one way. Yeah. They're spending a lot of time in their car. So I could see why having the convenience and comfort of Android Auto or CarPlay being high on the list for your next vehicle.
Absolutely. And so I kind of started to think about this. Why in the world would the company choose to make this decision? If right now it's such an easy thing to, relatively, it's an easy thing because almost every car is doing it to support this system. You don't have to worry about it. Yep. You don't have to do updates for it. You don't have to futz about. Yep. All you have to do is make sure that the infotainment system can communicate with the device. Yeah. And because you've been doing it up to this point, you already know how to do it. So why change this? Well, this Verge article talks about exactly why. Because they want the data.
I was going to say, do you want me to go into it?
They want the data. So they, by making it part of the system, then suddenly they can see your music listening habits. They can look at where you are planning on going regularly. They can see if the infotainment system also supports things like your car's speed and looking. They can learn so much about you. And the current way of doing it, a lot of that is walled off. And I will say particularly with iPhone, because that's part of Apple's sort of bottom line is we don't want anyone to have that data. And so this is a rich field, I think, for General Motors and for others. They might outweigh it.
When I saw the headline for it, I thought to myself, all right, who's writing the big check? That was the first thing that came to my mind. And then I was like, oh, it's got to be about data, because that's just going to lead to another huge payday for somebody. And that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. Mind the data, mind the fact that it knows that every Wednesday I'm probably going to the Costco over on 101 to get some fuel and probably going to try to figure out a way to promote some type of sales special going on at Costco to me. It's like, well, since you're over here getting some petrol, how about you go in and get a couple pounds of salmon while you're at it? And how do you know I want salmon?
Yeah, how'd you know that? What do you know about me? And it's like, well, because you stopped at this store and bought some vitamin D, and then you went here and stopped to get some, I don't know, an energy beverage. We know that your body is predisposed to needing the protein that comes from... What? How do you know so much about me? It's terrifying. But honestly, the other thing that The Verge points out that was also a little bit... It you know that meme with Arthur from the cartoon, the aardvark?
Yeah.
And he has a little fist and he's angry. Yes. They'd made me get the Arthur fist a little bit. Subscriptions. If you create these systems that are locked to the car, then in the future, when you're feeling like you're not making enough money every month on your the person who buys the vehicle, there could be subscription products. You could say, okay, you get the basic infotainment system, but if you want to be able to see your fuel economy, if you want to be able to see your speeds, if you want to be able to see this other stuff, if you want to check the engine and understand what the check engine light is, that's going to be $10 a month. Yeah.
A la BMW. Didn't BMW do that?
I think so.
Last year with the seat warmers and things like that.
Again, Arthur Fest.
Again,
you bought the car and it has them in there.
Yeah. That's a luxury, but at the same time, you bought the car because you knew it had seat warmers in there and you thought that was going to be part of the stock experience. I totally get that. That shouldn't be
that's what bugs me is I understand that's always been the thing. There are different trims. I'm probably using the wrong word.
No, you're right.
Okay, thank you. Trims, and you buy the trim that you can afford and that you want that has the things that you want to have with it. And then you get all of the stuff that's in it. But to buy the vehicle and it's the trim that has this stuff in it and then not get to use it's already there. That's my problem with it. It'd be different if it was like you pay a subscription and then what you do is you take it into a dealership and the dealership installs the heated seats and then you get to have heated seats. That's different. I could understand that because you're kind of like spreading out the cost of installing the heat, whatever. But if it's in the vehicle, that should be mine to use because I paid for it, right?
Right. I totally agree. But that's the age that we're in right now with everything being so computerized on cars and the market of subscription is everywhere we go, whether it be Amazon, you paying an annual subscription for that, whether it be Netflix, an entertainment subscription for that even if you're just trying to do work, you're paying a subscription to Google to work every year with Google Work. Everything is subscription based. So it makes sense that, we might as well jump in the game.
That's exactly what it is. It's the frustrating thing is it's different. I think if you start out with that being the agreement in place, but to just shift and sort of pull the rug out from under people. That's where it bugs me because I've seen that. I pay a lot of attention to smart home stuff. And the few companies who have tried to change from, hey, you bought this very expensive device and suddenly we're introducing a subscription service. It hasn't worked out well for them. There have been a few companies that have all but closed down because they tried to do that. If you sell a new product and from the get-go it's a subscription thing, fine.
Yeah. You know what you're getting into.
Yeah, you know what you're getting into. And so we're both on the same page. This agreement is here. And that I think makes sense. It's kind of an up and down, back and forth. I just recently got a new printer within the last year. And because there's some stuff that I do where I do need to have that kind of functionality. And you had two options. You could either use it without the printer special plus package that had like security updates and this and that and the other. But if you opted into it, then what it would do is you would get printer ink sent to you regularly as you ran down on printer ink, right?
Okay.
Which is great. It's a subscription service. You never have to worry about running out of printer ink.
Okay.
But they did it based on the number of pages. So the idea is like, after you get to that number of pages, if you reach that quota, then the printer will not let you continue to print. And then even if there's still ink in the cartridges.
Hold up. You telling me I can't use my printer when I want to use my printer?
If you do this service, yeah. If you decide to go in on this way. And what was wild is that the printer cartridges that were part of this service, they were higher yield. And so you get more ink, it's the better experience. So they're really trying to push you over into it.
Son of a...
But they will lock it down. And what's wild to me is like, if you leave the program and you have these cartridges that were a part of the subscription, you can't use those cartridges anymore. You have to then go buy
more DRM.
Yes,
cartridges.
It's DRM. It's worse DRM.
Crazy.
So this all feels as part of that same thing. And I understand now we're practically old men shouts at clouds, but
oldish. Yeah.
Yes. It just, like you said, it is the way of things, the way that things are going. I think that this, I don't know. Do you think that General Motors is going to end up reversing, car pun, is going to end up reversing its decision here? Or do you think they're going to stubbornly just push through it?
Oh, no, they're going to power through this.
Yeah.
They're going to power through it. And for the record, I don't have a problem with subscriptions as long as the subscription is giving me value.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be beat over the head and bullied into a subscription, such as what this printer company is trying to do to you. I don't care for that, but I don't mind paying a monthly fee for something that's just going to work for me when I need it to work, whether it's a car service or entertainment system or what have you.
Yeah. All right. Let's let my blood pressure go down. If you want to tell us a story you've got in your line of sight.
I don't know if this is going to help your blood pressure because it sort of bugged me when I saw it. On Ars Technica, there's a post from Ron Amadio. We love Ron Amadio here at TWiT. Headline says Google Drive does a surprise rollout of a file limit, locking out some of its users. What the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, a couple of months ago, some folks had reported an error message or a bug stating that, I'm getting a warning that says I have too many files in my Google Drive and I pay X amount of dollars for such and such amount of storage. That's not possible. Well, that is possible because you can have too many files now, according to what Google is planning on rolling out. I believe it's a 5 million record or something like that, 5 million file record, even though you've not necessarily reached your data cap.
Wait, so even if you haven't filled it up?
Yeah, look at this dude's face get red now. I love this.
So even if you haven't, let's say you've got 100 gigabytes of storage. I know it's probably more than that. And you have 75 gigs that you're using, so you've got 25 left. We're doing all the math here.
Yep.
If you reach this file number cap, then they won't let you put any more in it.
Yeah, they're shutting you down. Hey, you need to clean this up, is what they're telling me.
What if I've got a bunch of text files? They're just like tiny little...
Exactly the problem here. Because think about folks like Jeff Jarvis, who's writing has written this book, his Gutenberg parenthesis book. And he just got a ton of notes, ton of text files. He doesn't have a bunch of photos in there. He doesn't have a bunch of videos in there, but he's got years and years of research and work stuffed on his Google Drive account. And he's nowhere near his cap. But it's a lot of data in there that he's got to sift through. And he can sift through it. Why can't Google sift through it?
Amen.
What's the problem here? So this is something that's going to be of a concern for not only just the regular mom and pop folks using it, but what about folks that are using Google Workspace at the enterprise level or SMB level? That's something to consider. People are doing a lot of backups. Heck, we could be storing our backups for the shows there. Granted, some of our shows are big, because we can have those 3-hour shows like on This Week in Google, no comment. But then there's also the times of things like Hands on Mac. Your shows are not that huge in file size, but we still want to have plenty of the archival backup options to us that we need, that we deserve and paid for, Google.
That we paid for. Here we go again.
That's the thing.
I paid for. Look, there's the Arthur Fist. It just came out.
Oh gosh, yeah. That I saw that on again on Ars Technica.
What did they say? What's the reason? What did Google say? Why?
Again, Google is dodging it. just like another story I saw them in, is yes, this was in the code, but there's no real rhyme or reason. It says Google's workspace formal plans caps at 5 terabytes, but a quote enterprise plan promises as much storage as you need, which is a direct hypocritical statement compared to what's been found in the code and found in these error messages that several people are getting now. So they're dodging it right now. I'm sure there'll be more reports in the coming days about this, because Google's been in a little bit of hot water with this, as well as some other things here recently, last couple of days.
Jeez Louise. That's frustrating. I mean, this means that someone's going to have to sort of come up with or create a new system if they've been, if they've reached this cap because they've been using Google Drive as their method for saving all of this stuff. I think of a lot of people who have these different processes in place for backup, as you mentioned, or file generation. I mean, any number of things, and they've always relied on, we're looking at the amount of storage space that we have, and now it's a file number cap. And
it made me wonder about Google Photos, because when Google Photos came out with the Pixel line of phones, the carrot was you get a Pixel phone, you get unlimited storage on Google Photos for all of your photographs and high quality on that. Are we going to look at the same type of principles going to Google Photos? Is it going to be something that says, you know what, hey, you got way too many pictures in here, like Mikah Sargent does, not me, but but is it going to be something like that pops up for Google Photos? Because it's still just storing data. You know, when you look at it, it's not all text docs, and it can definitely be a lot bigger. But yeah, what's going to happen here? Because they've already punted once with this and allowed you to. I think they went from, okay, so we're not going to let you have full quality resolution, but we're going to give you high-ish quality resolution and unlimited versions of it. And so who knows? I wonder when the next punt is coming.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Again, this is, of course, Ask the Tech Guys. If you have tech questions you want answered, you can tune in you can call in by going to call.twit.tv. That URL will redirect you to our Zoom, where you can hop in and be brought on the air to ask a question that we will do our very best to answer. We've suggested and think it's a great way to use your smartphone to call in. When you do that, then we know that camera that's there, that speaker and microphone that you've got built into your phone will kind of all work together to make for a good experience for you and for us to be able to hear you, see you, and answer your question. And I do say see you, but if you just kind of want your voice on air and not your visual, that's totally okay. In any case, you go to call.twit.tv, and that is how you can get in. I want to mention one more little news story here, and I think we'll take a break. It's about the FTC. This is kind of interesting. So Amazon might be needing to watch its back a little bit because according to sources familiar with the matter, Politico says that the FTC is planning on bringing a case against Amazon regarding children's privacy. So with this case, essentially, the FTC is saying that Amazon has gone against some privacy regulations that are in place with the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act because of the Alexa voice assistant. And so because of the way that device works and how it may have been used by children, then that data may be stored on Amazon servers. And so it's enough that they're willing to kind of go through with this. So if you think about it, a lot of Amazon's devices, before they started to get this Echo Kids version, it is a little speaker and microphone, and you say things to it, and it hopefully gives you, provides a response.
Yep.
And so in the time leading up to its introduction of the children's version, at any point, if a child made a request, play Baby Shark. And that
Please
data, that data was stored on Amazon's side and reviewed and all that kind of stuff. That is potentially a violation of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, because the COPPA is kind of just a wide swath of don't save, don't collect, don't have data of children under a certain age. And we have seen this in play in terms of there are lots of services where they will ask you your age. And if you're under a specific age, then they'll just say, no, we don't want you using the service.
Yep.
Because they can't sort of justify the cost of trying to figure out how to not collect that data or, use the service in a different way.
Yep. Limiting liability.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what it boils down to, limiting liability. There is, according to Politico, a lot that kind of has to take place. The FTC has to first reach out to the Justice Department and say, hey, this is something that we have a concern about. And they don't know kind of how long this is going to take. But then the Justice Department has the choice to bring that case forward within 45 days of the submission. So once the FTC moves that along to the Justice Department, that's when we'll see movement kind of go forth. The different spokespeople have obviously declined to comment, and Amazon itself said that Amazon Kids is a way for this to not be an issue because it does require parental consent. And then after providing parental consent, it has this sort of dashboard where the parent can control things. And that's exactly what COPPA requires.
Right.
So I think the bigger concern here is leading up to that, how was data collected? And also, according to Politico, the FTC has been kind of looking into consumer privacy violations with Amazon for a long time. And this could be just one of several going forward, along with the Ring camera and sort of Ring security. So yeah, this could result in a financial penalty of $50,000.
Oh boy, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah, I laugh at $50,000 because for them that's like, oh
boy, that's gonna sting.
I didn't even feel that pee under my mattress. But I don't know.
I'm looking at this, and if this were a smaller company, smaller startup-ish company going through this, I could really see this being a problem. But this is Amazon we're talking about. Amazon has a gazillion lawyers. And every last one of those lawyers spend their time going through all of the potential layers of risk and having to advise regarding whatever R&D they have going on at the time. Say, look, this is your problem. This is where we need to take care of the risk and put this in the contract and in the terms of service and yada, yada, yada. So Amazon is going to be fine on this. They're going to, every now and then you're going to slip up and you're going to have to pay a $10 fine, which is essentially what this is to them.
They should have a calculator online. They have those inflation calculators,
Right.
They should have a calculator online that sort of proportionalizes it based on the company. That'd be great. I bet ChatGPT could do that. But
probably could.
I'd love to, yeah. So I'm Amazon. How much does this actually mean? If I was an average person, I'm going to look into that. I'm curious about that.
But this is a good thing. The FTC is stepping in because it's setting a precedent.
Yeah,
with all of big tech out there, and don't get me wrong, I'm not the person that says big government has to come in and fix this and fix that. Right. No, I'm not that person. But I do like the idea that big tech is being held accountable for things that they slip up on. It's only going to help make the tech that all of us here at TWiT enjoy. It's going to be better.
I think particularly if we've already got these acts in place, we don't want, if anything, we should at the very least enforce these rules that have already been set. I can understand hesitance about different regulations going forward, but any sort of blatant violation of rules we already have in place, that has to be enforced.
Right.
And I also think that in the long term, the more we get people in positions of power who are more aware of, mindful, and understanding of the way that tech and big tech in particular has an impact, then we'll start to see these fines, I think, get a little bigger. Or at least change in how they're calculated so that it is more than just, as we know, a $10 fine. Like I would
Amazon,
lose more money
you owe
speeding
me
on the
an
highway.
In and out combo for this, okay?
Will you buy me a Boyga? All right, let's take a quick break before we come back with more. We've got a great video question coming up that is perfect, I think, for Ant to answer. And I got to tell you, the cinematographer who captured this video, I think our caller did a really good job.
He did.
I mean, the mise en scene is excellent. The great depth of anyway, you'll see. But let me take a quick break to tell you about Lookout, who's bringing you this episode of Ask the Tech Guys. You know this. Business has changed forever. We were just talking about commutes, but we were also, think about how now we've got some people working from home. We've got some people doing that hybrid thing, and everywhere in between. Boundaries to where we work or even how we work are all disappearing. That means your data is always on the move. It could be on a device, it could be in the cloud, it could be across networks. You may be sitting at the local coffee shop doing your job. While that's great for your workforce, it is a challenge for those incredibly hardworking folks in IT security. Lookout helps you control your data and free your workforce so that you don't have to say, you know what, you can't go sit at the local coffee shop and work, because if you do that, then we're going to have a security issue. That's freeing them as well to work from where they need or want to work. With Lookout, you'll gain complete visibility into all of your data so you can minimize that risk from external and internal threats and ensure compliance. By seamlessly securing hybrid work, your organization doesn't have to sacrifice productivity for security. And Lookout makes IT security a lot simpler. I think about that a lot, the idea that we've thought that this was a trade-off. You either got to have this high security or you got to have more productivity. Because if you're constantly putting up roadblocks in the way of someone being able to get something done because you're trying to maintain that security, it stops them from being able to do their job. We want to have both. We want to be able to give someone the power to do their job, but also make sure that it's being done while it's secure. Working with multiple point solutions and legacy tools in today's environment is too complex. That's where Lookout comes in with its single unified platform. It reduces IT complexity. It gives you more time to focus on whatever else comes your way. Good data protection isn't a cage. It's a springboard, letting you and your organization bound toward a future of your making. Visit lookout.com today to learn. I love that. It's so easy to remember. Lookout.com to learn how to safeguard data, secure hybrid work, and reduce IT complexity. That's Lookout.com. Thank you, Lookout, for sponsoring this week's episode of Ask the Tech Guys. And look out, because we've got a great question from a listener.
Hi, this is Mark, a.k.a. Data Nut, longtime caller, first-time listener. My mother is 92 and moving into an independent living place, an apartment, and she's downsizing, so I'm going to take pictures of all of her items that she's accumulated and want to make those accessible to my siblings, and then possibly also organize those in a way if there's like an estate sale that I can have those available for a potential estate sale company. So I'd like to take a whole bunch of pictures and then have a way to label them and then make them accessible. And I was thinking there might be something I can do with my Synology NAS that would allow me to put the pictures up there and then be able to have some text associated with different ones. And then possibly somebody else I could make it so other people could maybe put some information in there. I don't know if there's a software or something I could look in, or maybe some other solution. Thank you.
All right. So I thought this would be a great question for you because I was kind of floundering a little bit.
And the thing is with this question, first off, yes, kudos to how great that video looked. And you've clearly done this before. I mean, he's looking at the camera, nice, beautiful frame. Wasn't a whole lot of headroom.
Yeah.
He's thought about this. So nice work to you for that. But yeah, this question, when I thought about it, there's a lot of different avenues you can go. And when you're thinking about trying to share out photos for people, the best rule of thumb, of course, is to try to keep it simple. And you clearly have enough capability to share some stuff out because you have a Synology NAS, number one. And Synologies are fairly easy to run, or pretty much most NAS network attached storage are fairly easy to run, but there are some tools built into it for the more nerdy folks, more technical folks, if you want to, that you can utilize. But again, if you're sharing this out to the non-technical person, you don't want this to be a bit of a pain for them to access it. So a lot of it is going to take more work from you from a prep standpoint. All right. So you're literally going to have to go through your file structure and organize your files the way you want them fit, whether it be a folder for living room, folder for, bric-a-brac or what have you. But then you're thinking about, well, maybe I should tag them because a lot of online services allow you to use tags and search for things based on tag names. So you need tools for that. Tool I recommend is Lightroom, of course, because I'm a Lightroom user, Adobe Lightroom user. I know most people don't subscribe to Adobe Lightroom, but it is a really great tool for managing digital assets. You can log into it, import whatever your files are, and put tags in right then and there exactly how you want them, by date, by name, by color, location. And it's beautiful. And when it's time to go back and search for something, you literally just type in a tag and boom, it pulls them right up. So that is an option for us, at least getting things organized. So now that you have everything organized, what's the next step? How are you going to share it out? A couple of different services. Your Synology service is one option. Lightroom has another option. And then there's the tried and true Flickr. Remember Flickr? Mm-hmm. Flickr is still around. Flickr.com is a photo sharing, photo community service. I used Flickr for I don't know how many years. And when I wanted to start sharing some photos out, I went to Flickr first. And this was probably 20 years ago. It's been that long.
Wow.
So even if you look up my Flickr profile doesn't even say my name. It says like Pruitt family or something like that, because that's how long ago it's been. And Flickr has a lot of the things in place to allow you to share things publicly or privately. The only barrier to entry with Flickr, Lightroom, or any of these other services is people have to sign up for it.
Okay.
That's the bad thing. So if someone wants to get into Flickr and do some additional commenting on the information that you shared, they're going to need an account.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just view only, read only. And that may not be any good for you. So if you want them to be able to put additional comments and tags like that, they're going to have to sign up for an account. So sign up for a Flickr account, or you can sign up for an Adobe account. It's totally free. Or you can sign up for whatever Synology service is. Mm-hmm. But I want to show on my screen here Flickr and just the process of it here. So right now, I'm following a handful of people, and I could set it to where the people that I follow have access to my information and data based on, whom I choose. So I wanted to pick on Mr. Greg Coonrod, who I know happens to be a Club TWiT member, and I appreciate him supporting us. So if I click on follow, it gives me this extra little pop-up here. It says I can mark him as a friend, mark him as a family, so on and so forth. So I'll click mark him as a friend and click follow. Now, going back to looking at the different files in your Flickr. So let's just go to my photo stream here. And if I want to share here in Flickr, just hit the little share buttons. And you can go through the different options here, whether you want to put it on a website. This just makes it publicly viewable. But if I want to share it with a friend, where did it go? Oh no, I lost it. Oh, it's in my albums. I'm sorry. I practiced this before. So go to here. So we'll go to a random album. Sorry about that. So let's take Biscuits here. Shit. Oh no, I'm so sorry.
And now it's disappeared.
I just did this last night. I see nature. Share it. I'm signed in too. Oh, I'm so sorry. Well,
that's okay. So normally you should be able to share it.
You'll be able to see the different groups that you can share it with. You could share it with family. You can share it with friends, or you can keep it totally private. And even when you look at just individual images, down here in the bottom right, it shows more of the sharing information. So again, like you see, this is currently set to private. Commenting is only set to whomever you want to set it to. So everybody can't just comment on it. They can view it, but they can't comment it. That's a tool that you can use right there. But then there's also Lightroom. So I pulled a little fake catalog in here for Lightroom, and I just called it Hop Demo. And it's just 2 images here. And if I wanted to share it out, I ended up sharing it to basically the Hop show. Okay, go back. Shared it. Oh, it's in the other window, but I shared it to the Hop show, and it allowed them to see just whatever it is in here. This is a whole different browser window. I'm logged in to somebody else, and just tab through whatever they want to tab through to see the images. And if they wanted to edit, I needed to give them edit access.
Got it.
Over here, I just go to that account, and I could say, allow them to edit, pop off of that, go back to where I was logged in as the Hop account. And it should give me a pop-up at the top that says, hey, you now have edit permissions, but you notice over here on the right-hand side, you got all of these extra options now to go in.
Oh, wow. And actually make those fine-tuned adjustments.
And make those edits and add comments, and all of that information is right there. And again, this is just a service. It all boils down to the barrier of entry, where getting an email address and have them set up an account. That's the main thing, whether it be your Synology, Lightroom, Flickr, you're going to have them log in. And after that, it's up to you as far as how complex or how simple you want this process to be for your family. Again, just get started with the organization side of it first, because that's going to be the biggest part of your work. Going in and setting up your file structure on whatever computer you have. Windows, Mac OS, what have you, they all have some sort of search feature and some sort of tagging system that allows you to put in the information you want to put in for the metadata and make it easily searchable for your next project, what have you. But I highly recommend Flickr because number one, it's free. It's free to use, and you get up to, I believe you get up to 1,000 images for free. So that's probably worth a good look there.
Yeah, especially being able to access it online, I think, is a big thing. I wanted to mention, and this is why I liked yours, because from your perspective, it is a non-denominational, so to speak, solution.
Yep.
And I know that one of the things that if everybody involved is using iOS or, Mac OS, iPad OS, the thing that I would recommend is shared iCloud albums. Because when you create an album that is shared with other people, it essentially turns it into your own little private social media network. All of the photos are there. You can like photos that you like specifically, and then it also gives you a little comment stream. And so then everybody could add those little comments, and then everyone can take whatever photos are in that shared album and save them to their own personal library if they want to. But that is not platform agnostic, which was the term I was actually looking for. It is.
I was like, you saying denomination. I forgot today's the Sunday sermon, folks.
Amen. And so that's why I definitely wanted that take to kind of talk about how no matter what you're using, whatever device it happens to be.
The thing is, you mentioned photos on iCloud. I thought about Google Photos, but Google Photos I haven't had a good experience with it, especially when it comes to a privacy standpoint. You tell things, I don't want to show location here.
And sometimes it still
ends up showing my location, as well as showing email addresses and things like that. Oh, yeah,
that's no good.
So I shied away from that, and that's why I leaned on Flickr, because with Flickr, you just literally get a username. up there. We saw Mr. Greg Coonrod's name showing up on the screen because that's how he showed his name to display. But you didn't see any of his private information.
Exactly. And that's big. That's what we want with this, especially if you are sharing it with some people who are running an estate sale or what have you.
Right.
It's coming from different ways. So having that sort of more professional, more public-minded aspect, I think, is what makes that an excellent option.
And the next step up from that, which I'm not going to recommend, but it's the obvious step from it, is having a website, whether it be like a Smug Mug. That allows you to share images. That's what most photographers are doing anyway. But then it gets into the aspect of, do you have them go in and get into your content management system and changing tags and things like that? And, no, but that's
honestly,
like the next obvious thing.
This is a hard problem to solve.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are some, in fact, I know there are some companies that do estate management who have their own system specifically for this, because my family, I remember, made use of one. And so they had someone who came in, took photos of everything, and then it went into their site. And then the direct family got like a personal login. Everyone could go in and do that. But that's all custom.
It's proprietary.
Yes,
They're doing exactly what we're trying to do.
For that, yeah.
But they've built a database essentially on their side.
That's what the people want to do with it. So, hopefully that helps. And of course, we'd love to hear from you if you have some follow up on that. I just checked this the other day. You can email several ways. We've been talking about using askthetechguys@twit.tv, but that's kind of long. You can email atg@twit.tv, and you can email attg@twit.tv.
We got you covered.
Askthetechguys@twit.tv. All of that will get to us. So if you've got questions you want to send that way via video or what have you, you can do that.
Now, before we move on, I wanted to bring up one more thing about that questionnaire. It made me think, and it's something that I hope everyone takes the opportunity to do is, yes, he's doing planning for an estate sale that could potentially happen, but also let's think about just getting memories of our family members. And I was just speaking with someone here at the studio. I won't say their name. And Doctor has mentioned it before on the show several times, but if you get a few minutes, take your phone and just record some conversations with these family members. Have that audio. Get that audio, stick that somewhere on the cloud and back it up somewhere. Have that for down the road when you just want to share some memories with your loved ones. Because folks, you never know. It can happen to any of us at any time. And it's always nice to be able to look back and have some things to reflect on. I still have voicemails from my dad, and every now and then I want to hear that crazy rascal's voice, and I have access to it.
Yeah.
So yes, grabbing pictures and taking selfies with family members is one thing, but if you can just spend 5 minutes, instead of holding it up to do a photo, hold it up to do a video, or hold it up to just record the audio and just have a conversation, and that'll be a memory that you can pass along for years.
That's great advice. All right, folks. Again, if you want to call in to ask a question, it's call.twit.tv. And I believe we've got someone with their hand raised who's calling in to ask a question on the show. And I see a nice headset going on there, ready to rock and roll. Is that Gary? Is that what that says?
Yep.
Hi, Gary. Hi, Gary.
Yeah, hi. How are you?
Gary.
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
asking. Yeah. So, I got a real quick question to ask you. We haven't talked about passwords, since with LastPass, but I've always heard you guys talking about the, like a passwords, like to save like on the cloud and all that. But what about like the Google Chrome passwords, Firefox password managers? Would those are they safe to use actually?
Browser password managers.
Browser password managers. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. So this is a great question, Gary, because here is the sort of base level, statement that I want to put out into the world. And that's having pseudo-random passwords for every site is the most important thing, or one of the most important things that a person can do to manage their online safety. And I think for a lot of people, using the built-in password manager in their browser of choice is a convenient way to make that happen. Many of these browsers, their password management systems are sort of within the companies. They're their own sort of portion of the company, their own team that is working specifically on that. And so they are well done. Safari in particular, because it is essentially the password and passkey and iCloud keychain team that does that password manager in Safari. I know that Firefox also has a team that's sort of specifically trying to manage that and maintain security and safety there. And the fact that it can sync between devices and is going to conveniently, work in every browser that you're using means that people are more likely to use it. And so in that way, it's a great first choice. But much like email, where the best email that you can possibly get is a company that is specifically focused on email, that is specifically trying to make an email service that rocks, you're going to get better email from that than a company that just has it as a third, that has it as an extra option, and in many cases is using it as a data grab. So if you want the best features, if you want the most control, if you want to be able to make changes like we talked about with the, PBKD2 settings, then that's where you want to do a password manager. But if you can't afford to subscribe to a password manager, or if you have trouble with the process of getting that all set up, or if you're trying to encourage family to make use of a password manager, and the easiest way to get them to do that is to use the one that's built into the browser, by all means,
that's a start.
It is a start. So it's not, you shouldn't have sort of, in the back of your mind going, oh God, this is not, this is something that can instantly be breached or something like that. Because that's not the case. I think the reason that I don't choose to use an in-browser password manager, it's twofold. It's one, that I know that by paying for my password manager and using a company that's completely just focused on that and that alone, I'm going to get the best features and the best security and everything that comes along with that. And then the second one for me is that so if a person's makes use of your machine, if you need to, if it's a public machine or a semi-public machine or a family machine, then a password manager that's a whole separate thing, I think, is a little bit more privacy minded than, I'm letting someone use my machine and I'm using Chrome to do my passwords. And then suddenly they just are, auto-populating my passwords for different things using Chrome. Yep. So that's something to keep in mind. Ant, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and I love the fact that you brought up the convenience factor, because that usually means it's probably a problem if it's super convenient to be able to use these services. I pulled up on the website here, keepsecurity.com. This is just the first thing that popped up because I had heard this before, but you don't want to use a browser plugin because, number one, if your browser becomes compromised, so do your passwords. And then there's also browsers are frequently remained logged in. Yeah. And I believe I heard Mr. Steve Gibson talk about this before in the past, that a lot of browsers, again, you just stay logged in and those cookies are everywhere. And that tends to lead to other problems happening down the road, a la the issue with LastPass and Plex and the sessions being captured. So all of that is just, it's convenient. It's nice to have that little plugin sitting right there on the browser, and you click on it, it does what it needs to do, but you probably should put a little bit more friction there when it comes to using your passwords. Use the different password managers that are out there, and also use 2FA.
Yes.
In addition to that, and I know that's a hard sell for most people out there. I struggle with my family with passwords.
Oh, absolutely.
And we've finally gotten used to it, but it took a while. It took a good year plus to get everybody used to doing, a password manager as well as utilizing two-factor authentication, because I would pick up a hardhead's laptop and it would have all of this stuff auto-filled.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, stop.
Anyone could then pick it up and do that exact thing.
Just stop doing that.
Yeah.
And they learn their lesson. And I did a couple tests and just to
nice.
Just to mess with them.
Testing, yeah.
Just to mess with them a little bit. And it was like, well, your password was right here. You essentially just wrote it down and left it on the desk for me.
Yeah.
Gary,
I think this is an incredibly good question, not only, and hopefully helping you answer it, but also for the people who are listening in. I think if we look at the ranking, because I want to make it clear, I am not suggesting that we shouldn't use browser password manager systems, because I think if that's what you can get someone to use, then that is so much better than having, 321 monkey as the password for every single site they're visiting. And if it's a personal machine and they're using it on their own, it's not going to be picked up by somebody else, then that is still a more secure solution than, again, having 321 monkey as your password everywhere. So it's not as if I'm saying you either pick using the same password everywhere or you get a password manager and those are the only two options. No, there's certainly sort of a ranking system, and having that password manager built into the browser is a step up from the lack of security that comes with just using the same password everywhere. So yeah, I really appreciate you asking this question, because I think it's something that's always been in the back of my mind too, where, I launch Firefox or I launch Chrome and it says, hey, you want me to remember that password for you? And I immediately go, no, because I use a password manager for that.
But you're one in like 99% that does
exactly. And so people should feel comfortable at least having some form of pseudo random password generation to make it just a little bit safer.
I know that you can turn off those options like in Chrome and Firefox, where you don't want them to actually tell you to go take and save these passwords. But I just was a question, because I haven't heard anybody really say anything about that saying like, hey, use the browser management password instead. So this just it just came to my mind over the last couple of days here, and like, hey, maybe I'll call in and find out what
some of those
what the situation is here.
I believe some of those extensions store the passwords unencrypted in plain text too. That's a whole other
of course, that's something you have to be careful about. Go ahead.
Chrome does that. It's unencrypted, but now I know that Firefox is encrypted now, because it asks you. Yeah, now it is. Yes, because it asks you to. It asks for your Windows password.
Again, shouldn't that have been by default?
It should have been a long time ago. Yes,
but again, Firefox is a browser. That's what they do first. They are a browser, not a password manager.
Gary, thank you so much for calling in and asking that question. And again, it is a helpful education for more than just you calling in. So we appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gary.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Let us, and again, I wish I could see names whenever somebody has their video on. It's
Jocelyn.
Okay. If that's the person above me in this video I'm looking at.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Jocelyn.
Hello.
Where are you calling from?
Oh, this is Zoom background. I'm actually in Elizabeth, New Jersey, but this photo was taken in Chapin, South Carolina.
I was going to say, that looks like Kakalaki. I know that.
South Kakalaki. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you for calling. How can we help?
I am one of those people who had two-factor set on Twitter using text messages.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
And just recently, they've only allowed that for blue check people.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get into my account to change it to any other thing without turning off the security. So I'm hoping that maybe someone has a suggestion.
Oh, so right now what's happening is when you try to log in, it's telling you that you need to have the code, but because they turned off the text messaging option, then you can't log in?
So I admit I was logged in from before, so I missed possibly any announcement or information from them to tell me that I needed to do something.
Okay.
What I get is, you have to turn off two-factor because this is only allowed for people with blue checks. I don't really want to turn it off for the few minutes that it would take for me to try to set up a encryption key or a authenticator.
Okay.
Without, I can't get to the account to turn on the authenticator part of it to be able to turn off the text messaging two-factor.
Right. So then to clarify, so in the current way that it's set up, it is giving you the ability to still log in. It's not as if it's going in a loop, because that's what I thought you were saying at first, is like you want to log in, but you can't log in because the two-factor. So you are able to log in, you would just have to turn it off temporarily.
So I will, by example, I will show you. You're right. Yeah, I think that's what they want me to do, but I don't want to because I'm afraid of that.
Right.
I was on my desktop and it sent me a text to say, this is your code to enter. I entered that code and immediately it gave me the same, we've turned this off.
Yeah.
So I'm blocked from doing anything in the account except turning off two-factor.
Okay. So, now that we've got that out of the way, I want to tell you that for the 2-3 minutes or however long that it would take for you to set up using an app as your two-factor authentication, because that's essentially what it wants you to switch to.
Yep.
You are going to be okay. And the reason why is let me be clear. As long as you are not using a password, monkey123, that you're using on a whole bunch of other sites, then the password that you have is unique to this site. And so what that means is a hacker, a bad actor, a whomever, a bad person.
A very bored person.
Yeah, a very bored person would have to know your specific username, would somehow have to gain access to that password that you have, and then in that very short period of time would need to log into your account and mess everything up in that short period of time.
Right.
The chances of that are so low.
Right.
That you're going to be okay to make that change. As long, I want to make it clear, go ahead and make sure you know what app you want to use that you're going to do two-factor authentication with, because think about the many, many years that we had usernames and passwords online and did not yet have two-factor authentication.
Right.
That was a more recent technology that just adds even more security in place. But we've existed, for a long time. And there's still to this day some accounts where I don't have two-factor authentication. And because I've created a password that was unique to that site, then it was not an issue.
Yep.
Now I got to say, I know you can't confirm or deny. If you work for the CIA or the FBI, then we've got a situation here where I understand you're like, oh, those 3 minutes, somebody from some other country's trying to get in there.
Yeah.
But if, you live your life normally.
Their passwords at the CIA are going to be pretty daggum strict.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you've already got, some, if you are a CIA agent, blink twice, then you probably have to have a password that is very unique to that site. So I think what's awesome for what I'm hearing from you is that you are very security minded. And you want to make, so much respect. You want to make sure you're secure. So knowing that about you, that's telling me that you are being mindful on other sites. You're not, seeing the email pop up that says, I'll give you 12,000 Bitcoin if you send me your credentials. So because you're already security minded, temporarily disabling two-factor authentication, they would still have to have your username, your password.
And it's literally 3 minutes, like you said.
3 minutes.
It's not terribly long.
Yeah, it's like everything there would have to be someone over your shoulder who saw you type in your password and knew that right at that moment you were logging in to do that. But I want to be clear too. Again, so much respect for that mindset that you have of maintaining your own security and your own protection online. But yes, just to go in and make this change, it's so obviously I can't just go, there's no way it would happen, because that's just not the case. But it's so unlikely. I think I'm probably more likely to have a jet engine come crashing down into the studio right now.
Oh, watch out.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So if that happens before the end of this episode, do not turn off two-factor authentication.
What two-factor service you're looking at using? Because we definitely need to get you off of SMS. That's the worst way to go.
Which would you recommend? I was thinking of Google Authenticator.
It's
just because I have it for other things. And then for work, we use Microsoft.
I like to use Authy myself because I'm someone that wipes my phone for whatever reason, probably a couple times a year. And having that Authy account allowed it to be stored securely. And when I get my phone back or what have you, it literally just pulls everything back in. I just unencrypt it with my secure password, and it gives me all of my authenticator keys right back without a hassle, instead of having to go back in and recreate them again on every service that I want to recreate them on.
I also like that Authy is independent of, those companies. So it's with Microsoft, then it's also part of Microsoft. With the Google Authenticator, it's part of Google.
Yep.
So the fact that Authy is its own separate thing, I like. I will say that the password manager that I use also has built-in two-factor authentication, and so if you're trying to be as 1000% safe as you can be, then the recommendation is to use a separate two-factor authentication tool from your password manager. But since I don't work for the CIA, wink, I just keep all of that in one password itself.
Sure you don't.
Yeah.
No, he's part of the SEC.
And that's honestly for convenience sake, because then after my password gets popped in, then it can automatically suggest for me my two-factor authentication code. But I do have Authy as a backup method, and Authy is fantastic. It's available across so many different accounts.
Yep.
And as Ant is saying, no matter however many times you need to reset things or do whatever, they're there.
Yeah.
But I don't want to if it's simpler for you and you already have stuff that you're doing in Google Authenticator, it's not bad to use Google Authenticator. I just wanted to give you the reason why we're talking about Authy. I just like that it's independent from those big companies.
I used to use Google Authenticator, and I migrated everything into Authy just because of what Mr. Sargent said. Is I didn't want that connection tied to the Google account. I wanted everything siloed off.
So is Authy tied to the device that I would initially use it on?
No. So
not at all.
Yeah.
It's stored in the cloud.
Right. Because I have something at work that I have two different authenticators on my work phone, and I can never remember which one it is for the thing that I want to get to.
Yes, you have to bounce between two. It's so annoying, right?
Yeah. And then I have to.
I remember those days.
That kind of things. Yeah.
So Authy has like a dashboard that you can use online, which would keep you from having to, go into that specific app. But what's great about Authy too is that depending on the service that you're using, Authy might have like a tie-in with that service, and so you'll actually get a notification that pops up on your phone. So you don't have to actively go into the app; it'll buzz you and say, "This is your Authy code." So depending on what you're using, it can be great. And yeah, it's on iOS, it's on Android, it's on Mac OS, it's on Windows, both 32 and 64-bit systems, and on Linux. And then the dashboard online can give you access to that as well. It's made by Twilio, or I guess now owned by Twilio. Mm-hmm. And Twilio is a long time, the company's been around for quite a while. And so that you've got kind of a robust system in place. And yeah, I know a lot of folks who make use of Authy for that. But again, don't want to discourage you from using Google Authenticator if that seems to be what's easiest for you, so you're not bouncing between those different systems.
I remember the days of bouncing at my former job and having Google Authenticator and having Okta.
Oh, Okta. Wow.
It's like, there's got to be an easier way.
Fumbling for that YubiKey.
Like, which one is it? Which one is it? And finally, I was like, I'm just going to jump to Authy, and I just migrated every single thing over there. Now, the only unfortunate thing, and this has nothing to do with Authy, it's just, it's the people that you're logging into. Some of them don't even offer a 2FA option like that, and that annoys the crap out of me. Same. They're forcing me to get a code through email, or forcing me to get a code through SMS like you were doing. I wish government would step in and say, hey, y'all need to offer some type of 2FA beyond this unsecure stuff, but that's another rant for another day.
We hope that we helped you feel a little bit better about, logging into your Twitter account and changing it. And I will see you at the next CIA meeting. I mean,
the next coffee clutch.
Exactly that.
My last name is long, so back in the day, I set up my Twitter with the name that every other day or every week or so, I get a, hey, do you want to change your password? I'm like, no.
Oh, yes. Gotcha. I've had that actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a friend who had a very common name on Twitter or whatever, and they were regularly getting those notifications as well. So that makes more sense why you had that concern there for a little bit. So yeah, just, in those 3 to 5 minutes while you're doing that, because, when you get that, it is going to your email specifically. And so unless that person had access to your email and could then try to change the password, or taking it, I'm trying to think of a way where they could do this otherwise. They would have to somehow figure out the phone number that they could actually call and get in touch with someone at Twitter, which we now know is even harder given all of the people who've been let go from Twitter.
Finally, it's harder.
And then it would take them, at least an hour, if not more, to socially engineer the people on the other end of the line if they could get in to talk to somebody. So what you just said has given me a little bit more perspective on why you've, further had that concern about the 2-factor authentication thing. But even still, it would take them a lot of time, which you would be able to get your stuff done before that happened. So yeah, it's good that you're very mindful of that. And that makes me feel comfortable about every aspect of what you're, the steps you're about to take. So, we wish you all the best. And as I said, if you continue to watch, as long as there's not a jet engine crashing into the studio, should be good to go.
No, you're not allowed to have that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, folks. Well, Google has decided to sign me out. So I don't know what's happening next, but we did get a great email that I wanted to bring up next on the show. So as soon as I'm able to log back into my account, since Google's trying to be helpful, then we'll talk about that email. So the person who wrote in,
I got it. Adam from Oklahoma.
Yeah, you want to read that for us?
Sure, I got it here. Adam from Oklahoma says, I just recently purchased a 14-inch M2 MacBook Pro and do have some older accessories for my 2016 MacBook Pro. I'm curious if you have any good recommendations on some accessories, programs, and etc. that works or made specifically for the M2 Max. And if you would recommend getting the extended warranty through Apple. I'm also a Club TWiT member. Woo! Woo! And love the new content you all have produced. So thank you for that message, Mr. Adam. You're the M2 Mac Pro. I'm still a newbie in this thing, even though I've had my Mac for a month. Dude, I'm still... Yeah, that's another rant. Carry on, sir.
Adam, thank you for writing in. So what you kind of were talking about here is that you have some older accessories that work with an older device. And depending on those accessories and the ports that they have and the plugins that they have, there's not necessarily a reason to get rid of those accessories if they're still working. Apple does make a USB-C, which is technically, in this case, a Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2 adapter. So if you do have those Thunderbolt 2 accessories that kind of have the more squarish plug, then you can still make use of some of those accessories just by getting that device.
I didn't even know that existed. Wow.
Yeah. So I did that. Apple does not currently make a USB-C to Ethernet port of its own. Belkin is the one that makes the USB-C to Ethernet, but Apple used to make a Thunderbolt 2 to Ethernet port or adapter. And so at the time, I wanted to keep using that Thunderbolt 2 to Ethernet adapter that I had. So I had to buy a Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2 adapter, and then the Thunderbolt 2 to Ethernet adapter I plugged into it.
Daisy chained that much? Good
yes.
grief,
and
dude.
The reason why is because there was at the time some sort of flaw with the Belkin adapter that's been addressed since then, where it would renew the lease automatically for DHCP, but it would do it at inopportune times. And so right in the middle of doing something, it would just drop connection to renew that lease.
Right.
But using Apple's own adapter did not do that. That, again, has been addressed since then. So now I just use the third party. But if you spend a lot of money on those Thunderbolt 2 accessories and you want to keep using those, I completely understand. And that's something that you can do. Outside of that, the things that I would recommend, CalDigit is a great company that makes some incredible Mac products. They make a Thunderbolt dock. Actually, they make a couple of Thunderbolt docks. There's the Thunderbolt TS3 Plus and the Thunderbolt, I believe it's called TS4.
Yeah.
I cannot say enough good things about these docks. They are so incredible. They are powerful. They're small, which I like. They truly work how you expect them to, meaning I plug one cable into the machine and everything that's plugged into it actually works.
Right.
And you don't really get that with like even some of the best docking stations I've had. There's always something where you have to end up unplugging and replugging to get it to work, or it isn't sending power like it's supposed to.
I think that was the other big thing is the power output for if you want to charge something up, charge your phone, or heck, some of them even let you charge up another laptop because it's got that much juice on them.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that with anything else.
Exactly. They very specifically have these, power management firmware built in that is updated as it needs to be. And then, so with these devices, you're getting so many extra ports. If you go with the TS4, which is their most recent dock, it does Thunderbolt 4. It has 18 ports on it. So you could end up plugging in 2 monitors. You can have, a bunch of USB-C on the back. On the front are micro SD and standard SD. And this is UHS-2. So it has that extra strip that's in there. And audio, USB-C ports on the front, USB-A port on the front. On the back, there are 4 USB-A ports that are 3.2 Gen 2. So they're 10 gigabits per second transfer, up to that much. Thunderbolt 4, and then Thunderbolt 4 with charging, DisplayPort 1. I mean, it's got all the ports you could need. And even the TS3 Plus, which is now the older version, has DisplayPort. It has USB-A, it has USB-C, it has SD on the front. So if there's a sort of one port to rule them all option, or rather one dock to rule them all option, it is these 2 CalDigit devices. Either of them I think would be great as an option for your M2 device. They also make a few other products like the Element Hub, which I would recommend as well. With the Element Hub, you get 4 USB-A on the back, and then 3 USB-C on the front that are also Thunderbolt ports. These Thunderbolt ports, obviously one of them needs to go to the machine, so you can technically get 2 extra. But yeah, if you're just looking for a USB, I forgot. They put it on the side, so you do get 3 complete USB-C on the back / Thunderbolt on the back. So if you're just looking for extra places to plug stuff in, this is where those can go. And I want to be clear, CalDigit is not a sponsor or anything like that. I just have used their products and they've genuinely been so steadfast and true that I can't not recommend them.
I watched your,
so great.
I think it was a TS3 that you demoed.
Did a review,
that one when I got my machine because I was considering it, but I lucked out and found a dock in a closet amongst a bunch of other things.
Nice.
I found like a bunch of pictures and stickers of TWiT and Leo in the same closet. I'm like, where'd all this stuff come from? But I found a dock that's working for now. Granted, it's not Thunderbolt 4.
Right.
But it's giving me the additional ports that I need right now.
Sweet.
But I'm definitely looking to upgrade to the CalDigit just to get that more Thunderbolt 4. If you've got it, you want to be able to use it for sure. So totally understandable. And then Scooter X has shared in the chat, and it is a really good point. I've talked before about Saatchi products, and yes, I promise it's pronounced Saatchi. I get this question a lot. But Saatchi, they make products that are designed very well to match your Apple devices, and they have several different docks, but also several different accessories, and there's a sale going on right now. I've covered a Saatchi dock that also had built-in solid state drive storage
slot. And so you could use it as a dock and also more storage. And Ant is bringing up on his screen a great Saatchi dock. What's going on there?
This dock here is specifically for the Mac Mini, and it fits perfectly. It looks like it was part of Apple's regular, design and pull it off of their shelves. But you get the USB-C and USB-A, as well as 2 SD card readers on these things.
That's good for you, right?
Oh, man. Why don't we get more SD card readers on devices these days? Most laptops don't have them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of sad that they kick that to the side because, especially for photographers that are making use of those regularly, it'd be nice to have them. But that is some of the stuff. Again, between CalDigit and Saatchi. Also, when it comes to cables and adapters, Anker is a great solution there. They make incredible cables, and many of their adapters are cost effective and also do feature the proper firmware software that's needed to communicate between two devices. Recently, my partner got a new display and needed to do HDMI to USB-C. Mm-hmm. And instead of using an ugly dongle or adapter that hung off of the side of the laptop, Anker makes a cable that is HDMI on one side, and then on the other side is USB-C, and the adapter technology is just kind of built into the cable. So it doesn't have to be this ugly thing hanging off the side. Mm-hmm. It just all works with the cable on its own.
Everybody here is pro Anker, definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
we have Anker stuff all over this studio.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that's what Mr. Burke has in his hands
cable that's plugged in right now, I'm sure, is Anker. Yeah. And it's great for charging. It's great for all sorts of stuff. So yeah, between Anker, Saatchi, and CalDigit, I think you'll be well on your way, Adam, to finding what you're wanting to invest in. And again, don't forget that Apple adapter that if you've made a huge investment originally and you want to keep some of that stuff, you can use that.
Now, Adam, you also mentioned programming specifically for M2. And again, I'm a newbie on this still. It's only been about a month, but what I'm finding is for most anything that you search for within the App Store on your device, you're going to be fine with it being compatible with the M2 chips. Now, the other side of that, there are certain tools such as, like for me, Adobe Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. There may be some lag time on those third parties getting up to speed with the M2 chip. Adobe is now, granted, Adobe and DaVinci Resolve, they're good to go now, but I can remember a point in time when they weren't quite ready and everything was sort of in a bit of a beta performance. But if you're not using things like that, you're probably going to be fine as long as you're just searching through the App Store, or is it called App Store? Or is it the Mac Store?
The Mac App Store. Yeah, the Mac App Store.
If you search through there, you're going to be fine with your current M2 architecture.
There you go. All right. Speaking of the Mac, I think it's time for a check-in with Ant Pruitt, because Ant, you have switched from Windows mostly to Mac OS. And in fact, we had you recently kind of talk about the issues that you had, or in the growing pains, or the changing pains, I guess, in switching between systems. And we kind of went over that. But I thought it'd be great to check in with you and see how things are going, and if any other issues have popped up, and kind of how it's going for you.
I dadgum love that machine. It's so fast. It's so fast. Booting up is a second. Shutting down is a second if I need to shut it down, because
shutting down takes forever on a Windows machine.
Shutting down this dadgum laptop takes a few minutes, and it takes the fans to fire up, because apparently the chip gets too hot just to shut down, so the fans will fire up. It's such a weird experience.
That is weird,
But I've had nothing but a good experience from a performance standpoint on the M2 Mac Mini Pro, whatever it's called, that I have now. There are a couple quirks that I'm used to on the Windows side of things, and I'm fighting through that. But then there's things like, Alt Tab. Okay. So, we talked about using Command Q and so forth. But when I want to do Alt Tab to switch between the different apps that are on my screen at the time, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You get the whole pop-up on the screen when you do Alt-Tab that shows what's open, toggle through to select it. There's a lot of times nothing happens once I select said application, so I end up having to just manually click on it in the dock to make it pop up. I don't know why it is, but I'm getting used to that. Minimizing windows. You have that beautiful, like a genie in a lamp animation or whatever. I go to minimize something and I'm thinking, okay, I need to go back and open that up. I click on it in the dock. Sometimes it pops up, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends. Some things just work really quickly, and then there's other times there's a couple quirks like that. But for the most part, I'm very, very happy. Oh, I just forgot about something. Typing. You're doing an email or working in a spreadsheet or what have you. I found that sometimes delete and home doesn't quite do the same thing, because I may type out a sentence in an email and realize, I need to add an extra word at the beginning of the sentence. So my logic says hit home.
Oh.
So it'll send the cursor back to the beginning of the line. That doesn't work in everything.
I've never even used. I didn't know that was a thing in Windows.
You write more than I do.
Yeah, we use. So for me, it's Option key and then the arrow buttons. So if you do Option and arrow, you can go back to the beginning of a line. If you use Option or arrow left, it goes back to the beginning of a line. Option arrow right. So yeah, that's just a matter of a change in language.
Yeah, home and end on the keyboards, because the keyboard that I use the Logitech MX keys that's compatible with both Windows and Mac. So I didn't necessarily have to worry about switching. So if I wanted to hit home, I knew exactly where it was without looking down. And end is the same way. And every now and then those little bits of functionality vary for me depending on what app I'm in. But it's such a great experience to be on a operating system that just dadgum works, man. It just works. My son, the hardhead, he's also a photographer. So he hops on the machine and jumps into Adobe Lightroom to do his photo editing and management and so forth. And it was a bit of a transition for him as well to understand the file system. I had to tell him, look, we were on a bad file system previously. This is much better, but muscle memory gets in the way.
Exactly. That's the big thing is developing that muscle memory. I was trying to see if I could find a guide online, and CNET has one from 2013 that would probably still apply. How to make quick work of text navigation in OS 10. See, that's how old it is. It's calling it OS 10 instead of Mac OS.
Wow.
And so it's talking about how to use basically those arrow keys. Because see, I select text using the arrow keys, because you can hold down Shift while you hold Option to select a line or select different. And so,
I do that.
The home button is not ever something that I'd thought of, but I'll share this guide with you.
That reminds me, you just said Shift and arrow. Let's say I'm in Finder and I'm looking at a group of files that are in the icon format, not the list format. And I want to select a handful of them on a couple lines on the Windows side of things. I could click on the first one, just one single click, hold Shift and go down to the next range or what have you, and it'll grab them all. That doesn't seem to be the case on Mac OS. You literally have to drag
with your mouse.
Unless you're in list view. If you're in list view,
then it'll work.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Really, Apple? Come on.
Yeah,
that's some polish that I expect you to have.
That is, yes. So if there's a listener out there who does have, if there's, you're supposed to hold down one more button or something, I just don't know that. But yes, I have had that same annoyance as well in icon view instead of list view, which I very rarely use icon view unless it's for looking at photos.
I'm looking at photos and I'm looking at video files. It's so much easier for me to see those little thumbnails.
Exactly. Yeah, that is annoying. I'm with you there. But
I just got the stink eye from Mr. Jammer B as if I'm lying through my teeth. I'm not making this up, Mr. Jammer B. Try it. So now he's
It works for me.
lies.
Working for you?
Lies.
It works fine.
No.
I can go up, down, left, right.
No way.
Keys, it works fine.
We'll have to check into that
here.
after the show.
Nick, I will send a video to our team Slack here, sir. Just you wait.
I can beat you to it because I'm not doing a show.
This should be interesting. I think a lot of this does end up coming down to once you learn those new sort of muscle memory methods of doing things, then it gets a little bit easier. But there are certainly some quirks that I have dealt with for sure.
Scooter X mentions in the chat room, macOS Quick View spacebar is very handy. Yes, I love that because on the Windows side of thing, I would just hit Windows key and start typing. Now I just add an extra.
Oh, no. Scooter X is talking about how you can like select a document or an image or anything like that, and just pressing spacebar on it brings up this quick view.
Oh, that. I haven't tried that yet. Now that looks...
I love that. So that's nice. What I'll do when I have a bunch of photos is if it's like a list of photos, I'll click on the first one to select it. I'll hit spacebar and then use the arrow keys to move through the photos. And instead of being a little icon, it basically just zooms up and is big on the screen. So you can kind of see what you're
I have to try that.
Yeah.
I have to try that. But first we need to get that selection down.
Yes.
Apple. Put that in this in the next update.
Please do. Come on. All right. There's a little check-in on macOS. We do have a little message from Leo Laporte.
Hey, everybody. It's Leo Laporte, the founder and host of many of the TWiT podcasts. I don't normally talk to you about advertising, but I want to take a moment to do that right now. Our mission statement at TWiT, we're dedicated to building a highly engaged community of tech enthusiasts. That's our audience. And you, I guess, since you're listening, by offering them the knowledge they need to understand and use technology in today's world. To do that, we also create partnerships with trusted brands and make important introductions between them and our audience. It's how we finance our podcasts, but it's also, and our audience tells us this all the time, a part of the service we offer. It's a valued bit of information for our audience members. They want to know about great brands like yours. So can we help you by introducing you to our highly qualified audience? And boy, you get a lot with advertising on the TWiT podcasts. Partnering with TWiT means you're going to get, if I may say so humbly, the gold standard in podcast advertising. And we throw in a lot of valuable services. You get a full service continuity team supporting everything from copywriting to graphic design. I don't think anybody else does this or does this as well as we do. You get ads that are embedded in our content that are unique every time. I read them, our hosts read them. We always over-deliver on impressions. And frankly, we're here to talk about your product. So we really give our listeners a great introduction to what you offer. We've got onboarding services, ad tech with pod sites. That's free for direct clients. We give you a lot of reporting so you know who saw your advertisement. You'll even know how many responded by going to your website. We'll also give you courtesy commercials that you can share across social media and landing pages. We think these are really valuable. People like me and our other hosts talking about your product sincerely and informationally. Those are incredibly valuable. You also get other free goodies, mentions in our weekly newsletter that's sent out to thousands of fans. We give bonus ads to people who buy a significant amount of advertising. You'll get social media promotion too. But let me tell you, we are looking for an advertising partner that's going to be with us long term. Visit twit.tv/advertise. Check out our partner testimonials. Tim Broom, founder of IT Pro TV. They started IT Pro TV in 2013, immediately started advertising with us, and grew that company to a really amazing success. Hundreds of thousands of ongoing customers. They've been on our network for more than 10 years. And they say, and I'll quote Tim, "We would not be where we are today without the TWiT network." That's just one example. Mark McCrary, who's the CEO of Authentic, he was actually one of the first people to buy ads on our network. He's been with us for 16 years. He said, and I'm quoting, "The feedback from many advertisers over those 16 years across a range of product categories is that if ads and podcasts are going to work for a brand, they're going to work on TWiT shows." I'm proud to say that the ads we do over-deliver. They work really well because they're honest. They have integrity. Our audience trusts us, and we say, this is a great product. They believe it. They listen. Our listeners are highly intelligent. They're heavily engaged. They're tech-savvy. They're dedicated to our network. And that's partly because we only work with high-integrity partners that we have thoroughly and personally vetted. I approve every single advertiser on the network. If you're ready to elevate your brand and you've got a great product, I want you to reach out to us. Advertise at TWiT.tv. So I want you to break out of the advertising norm, grow your brand with host-read authentic ads on TWiT.tv. Visit TWiT.tv/advertise for more details or email us advertise@TWiT.tv if you're ready to launch your campaign now.
All right, back from the break, and now we've got another set of questions, this time from John. John writes in to say, I've got two questions here. First question, am I secure with LastPass if I use a Yubico UbiKey to access my LastPass account after entering in my LastPass master password? I've been using LastPass for about 2 years. I currently have my password iteration set to 600,000, which LastPass now recommends. When I first signed up, it was set to 100,100. So this is a question that has to do with the LastPass data breach. And basically, anyone who had a LastPass account, no matter how you had two-factor authentication or what kind of two-factor authentication or how many forms of two-factor authentication, that did not matter, because what that was doing was giving you access to your vault. But what the bad actors who ran off with everybody's stuff had was access to those vaults independent of your login to that vault. So your two-factor authentication was only there to protect you when you or some other person was trying to access your vault using that login method. But if the vault, and because the vault was grabbed independent of your login to it, then it doesn't matter if you had to have a carrier pigeon send you your two-factor authentication code and you type that in. Like, it does, no matter what.
Yep.
So, Leo has brought up a couple of times, sort of jokingly, but also there is some truth to it. Anytime a company does face a breach like this, then you can almost go, this may be even more secure than it ever was, because the company's paying so much more attention now.
Yep.
They don't want to mess up again.
Yep.
So the fact that you're still using LastPass, maybe you can rely on that. If you're asking me, if a company has a breach like that, I'm done with it. I'm moving on.
I did not move off of LastPass.
Okay.
And I thought long and hard about it and spoke with the family, because my family is special. I will say that when it comes to tech. But what I ended up doing is, because I knew those vaults were compromised, what have you, I just changed passwords on everything. Just went through that.
All of it. Yeah.
Changed passwords on everything. I had already made sure LastPass was squared away and updated with the proper security measures. Looked like it had already been updated when I went in there and looked to that 1 million PB. What is that long string of letters?
DF2.
Looked like it had already been updated, but I went ahead and just went through all of my personal accounts that I care about, and I just spent a weekend changing passwords. It was quite riveting.
That's so much work.
It was quite riveting just doing that, changing passwords, and then letting everyone know in the family, all right, these passwords are changed. We're moving forward. And I'm hoping that I'm safe, but that was the route that I took. I didn't leave LastPass.
Yeah. And as folks are pointing out, yes, the vaults that they grabbed were encrypted, but because there's nothing in the way of them constantly sending the computer after it to try and break into it. And if you had a password that was potentially more easily guessed, then you are at more risk. So if you had a completely pseudo-random password and it was a long password and the iterations were up and all of these other, then yes, you're safe. But they have the vault. And they have the data, and between now and when the sun crashes into the earth crashes into the sun, or
next week,
the sun goes supernova and then turns into a neutron star. Like, they could be sending a machine after it, a computer after it, and we're only going to get more powerful. I mean, all of those. I don't want to live in a space where I'm going, well, because of this, and this, I'm probably okay. They still have that data.
They still have that.
So what you've said is the big thing, and for the listener, John, John, if you have not gone and changed all of your passwords, you need to do that still.
Yeah.
All of the passwords in that vault, you need to go on and change all of them.
Yep.
No matter what your YubiKey was, even if you switch away from LastPass, you still need to go in and change.
Probably want to change those passwords anyway,
because those passwords were probably grabbed up in that breach.
Yep. Grab a beer and spend a day on the weekend and just do it. It's put on some good music. You're going to be there for a while. Just get it done.
Yeah. And then the second question from John, which I love this because this was in the classic style of someone saying, I have a question and then can I have a follow-up? So the way that this is, when someone says this, the way that this is supposed to work is you ask a question and then the person answers it. And then there's something in their answer that you follow up on.
Yeah.
So they say, the sky, you ask them, what color is the sky and what's your favorite food? And they say, the sky is blue and my favorite food is avocados. And then you go, avocados, huh? Why do you like that? That's a follow-up.
Yeah.
Following up on their answer.
Yeah.
But what people do is they ask a question and then what they do for a follow-up is they just ask another question.
A whole random question after that.
So I love, and John, I don't care. I think this is great because it's in that
EVs
traditional
or
style.
V8s.
Yeah. So the follow-up question is just a whole nother question. John writes, I stream with a Roku Ultra via Ethernet with the home internet speed of 900 megabits per second, but I still get occasional pixelation when watching sports, and in particular, that's hockey, soccer, and football. Mm-hmm. And it was really bad when watching this year's Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. When I go into my Roku settings to check my speed, it shows it's connected. It shows that it's a wired connection. It shows my IP address, and then it shows that the internet download speed is 93 megabits per second. I can't imagine that Roku would cap the Roku Ultra's speed below 100 megabits per second. Can you and some of your techies shed some light on my issue or recommend a fix? So I want to tackle this. I've got a follow-up for you because I want to tackle this in two separate parts. The first part here is what you're talking about, where when you're watching some games, there's pixelation or there's some lag or what have you. It is not just internet, your own personal internet speed that is at play here. There are so many factors that go into this. For one, depending on where you live and how your internet is set up, you may be faced with local issues of internet connectivity. I can remember when there was a house I lived in Columbia, Missouri, and it was an apartment complex. Mm-hmm. And that apartment complex did not have true separate internet connections for every home.
Oh, no.
And so they made it, they had like a deal with the internet service provider so that it was as if it was independent. But essentially every building had an internet connection that was then separated into all of the different homes. And so if everybody else was on the internet at the same time, that bandwidth dropped and you would not have as much bandwidth to work with.
The person closest to the pedestal had the best speed
exactly.
at the time. Oh,
yes.
That's horrible.
And that was awful. Now, where I live now, that is not the case. And so I usually don't have these issues. But then you have that, then you have like local nodes. You have where the servers are that are serving up this data. You also have how many other people are connected. That's why the Super Bowl was probably bad for you. Even though I have a personal data connection that's 1 gigabit, per second internet speeds, when I was watching the Super Bowl, it was laggy because not only was I using the free version of Fox that was streaming it, but there were a billion other people who were watching it at the same time. So it's going to have its lagging issues. And that's likely why you saw that problem. And then there are just so many other little factors that could be playing into why that's not happening.
Yeah, sometimes serving it up is a little bit slower, just to up speed from the host.
From the host, exactly. Mm-hmm. So speed, your internet speed itself, yes, the higher it is and the less jitter that you have and all of that magic stuff is going to make for a better connection. But it's not just you who's playing ball. It's also these other people that are as well.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, we're going to let you leave on that bad
Thank
pun.
You. Your turn.
Good grief, man. All right, so let's...
Well, before we actually, I do want to, there are some other suggestions that I do have here. So one thing that you want to do, John, is please run a speed test. I recommend Ookla's speed test. So run that on your local network and just see that you truly are getting, somewhere near 900 megabits per second. Advice that I would typically give is to use a wired connection. You are doing that.
That was the first thing I looked at.
Yeah. So the fact that you have it wired there is good. And then another suggestion that I have would be to look at your network connection settings, like on your router, and see if you've got any sort of what's called bandwidth shaping. Yeah. Thank you. Quality of service stuff going on, where it may just be misreading the Roku and not sending as much data as it's meant to.
Sometimes check your actual physical Roku device. Heat may be a problem.
Yeah.
So make sure that it's getting decent airflow on them too. I know back in the days of the early Chromecast, remember when the Chromecast first came out and it was so awesome, but you could only use it for about 10 minutes because it would fry itself.
Yeah.
So check to make sure you have decent airflow on your device too, because that could be a problem. That's
good advice. Yeah. Older Apple TVs would sometimes shut down or reboot because they got too hot. And yes, ScooterX points out it's a great idea to reboot the Roku, because I think a lot of times those set-top boxes, we forget that they are also their own little sort of computing devices, and they can be rebooted and should be rebooted. And yes, remember to replace the air filters in your AC. Also remember to drain your hot water heater once a year if you have a tank. And don't forget to brush your teeth before you go to bed.
I love our chat room. Our chat room is awesome. All right. Shall we move on to Mr. Daniel's question?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Daniel writes in, I have a question about Ring doorbells. I have a Ring on both the front door and one on my side door. I also have 4 Amazon Dots. I'm not going to say the full name, hockey puck models. I brought the doorbells last June and they have been working just fine. I have the doorbells linked to the Dots. I have to be careful because I know I've set out some things, which means when someone pushes the button at the front door, the Dots announce that someone's at the front door. Okay, that's convenient, right? The announcement comes from all of the Dots throughout the house, or at least it did until a couple of weeks ago. Now, the side door only comes out of one of the Dots. It comes out of the dot that is in my living room, and it's always easy to hear. The motion alert from the front door still works properly, but not on the button press. Any ideas on how to fix the problem? So it sounds like everything is just starting to flake out.
Yep.
I've missed someone ringing my doorbell a couple of times, and since this started happening. Any help would be appreciated, says Daniel. Now, these are all of the tools that you use. I don't use any of these tools, and I have learned that they could be quite frustrating at times, which is why I haven't bought into them, because I hear stories like this quite often.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are so many things that can end up causing this. A lot of times your Echo Dot, and Echo is a less common trigger phrase, so I feel comfortable saying
okay.
it. So you can send all the email to me if you're mad about it. I don't say ALEXA. That's the pass you're getting. So these Echo devices oftentimes have firmware updates, or your internet might go out in the middle of the night, and when they reconnect, something goes wrong, or the Ring device might get an update that then sort of unpairs temporarily the connection between. I mean, there's so much that can cause this. And so typically your best option, and I've shared my screen to AirPlay too, is to go back into your settings and make sure that everything is set how you want to. So I've gone into the ALEXA app, because this is where you need to make this happen. Daniel, you have set this up with Ring, because if you're able to get chimes on your Echo devices, then that means that you have set this up. And you find the name of the device. In this case, mine's called Doorbell. So I'll tap on Doorbell and I'll tap on Settings. And then in Settings, you can see some different options, including an option under Announcements called Announcement Devices. So under Announcements, the first thing that you want to do is go down to Doorbell Press Notifications. Doorbell press notifications, of course, are notifications that the doorbell has been pressed. And if this is on, as it should be, because you are getting it on one device, toggle it off and toggle it back on. I know it's the turn it off and on again, but honestly, it can help.
That was hard.
Yeah, I know. And then the next thing you're going to do is in the announcement devices tab, we're going to tap on that. And here you're going to make sure that you have all of those Echo Dots selected. So this is where you would notice, it doesn't actually have those selected anymore. If the check mark is showing next to it, you can guess what I'm going to say next. Uncheck it and check it again. And sometimes that's all it needs to kind of kick things into gear. And I have to tell you, Daniel, thank you for sending in this question, because I popped in here and I realized that I accidentally had the Echo Dot I have sitting on the desk in the studio here, on my desk in the studio here, selected. So that meant every time someone rang the doorbell at my house, the Echo in the studio was going, there's a doorbell being rung right now, this whole time. So I'm sorry to whoever was here and ended up hearing that at whatever point, and you're going, who's in here in the studio?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So thank you, Daniel, for having me check out these settings, because I was able to turn that off. How embarrassing. And then once you've done that, then go ahead and just check that the other settings are how you want them. You'll notice I have motion announcements turned off because these devices are constantly detecting motion.
Yeah.
I don't want that constantly going, there's motion detected at your front door, because it would be doing that all day, every day.
My cameras do that, and it's quite annoying trying to adjust the sensitivity
to just right.
Oh gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times these end up just being devices that raise people's blood pressure rather than do anything that's helpful.
And that, speaking of that, the whole security cam thing, I'm sort of like 50-50 on them, because if my camera captures someone doing a porch pirate thing, trying to steal a package, it sees it, sends the notification to me. I get the notification. I run down. By the time I run down, it's too late.
They're gone.
It's too late. Then there's the aspect of you're out having dinner with friends or family or whatever, and there's somebody with their phone staring at their camera just to make sure everything's safe at home the whole time. You're just giving yourself additional paranoia. You didn't really need to.
That is actually, so I used to have indoor cameras, and there was mostly, at least I made the excuse, it was for keeping an eye on the dogs. And in some cases, like if both of us are out of the house, then I do have one in there just so I can check in on the dogs. But I used to have one in the house at all times, and I had it all set up and firewalled properly where I wasn't worried about someone checking in or whatever.
Yeah.
But I did come to the realization that I didn't really need it, and it was more of just this thing that I thought was something that I needed. So if I leave the house, like right now, I don't have one on in the house because just being at work and then coming back home, it's not a big deal. But it was whenever, that we only set it up for like going into San Francisco or something like that. We're going to be gone for most of the day.
Yeah.
But having one on and in the house was only just adding anxiety to my plate that I just didn't need, and it ended up not being something that was helpful. I don't begrudge anyone their choice to do so, but for me, it was more of a, well, now I'm just going to be constantly looking at this thing.
Yeah.
Every notification that pops up, I'm going to be, oh gosh, more times than not, it hasn't. I mean, and that's how they have to sell these things is it is a fear-based system. I mean, that's how they make the sale of security systems and cameras and everything like that.
And don't get me wrong, I still want my camera.
Yeah.
There's a reason I got the camera, because there was some vandalism at the property a couple of years ago. So I needed to be able to see what happened.
Yep.
Not that I can necessarily prevent it, but I could at least report it as evidence to law enforcement if I needed to. But the fact that I could be sitting in the home studio working and get the alert that somebody just tried to get on my front door, I better be pretty dadgum quick getting downstairs, getting out the door, and then chasing them down and do what I need to do.
Right.
It may be too late,
Yeah. So I'm with you there too. There were a couple of times where things got stolen off of my porch, and so I was happy to have that doorbell camera specifically, but moving them from out of the house for the most part, I think was actually a beneficial thing to me. But yeah, definitely check those. And if those things did not solve your problem, let us know, Daniel. Again, you can email us atg@twit.tv, attg@twit.tv, or ask the tech guys at twit.tv. Any of that stuff will work. We try to just, be available. We'd love it if you send in video, if you send in audio, if you send in text via email, as these were. We've been answering those. And of course, you can always call us, call.twit.tv, to be able to join us live for the show and answer or have your question answered there. But I believe it is now time for me to stand up and go over to Radio Corner because I have some really exciting things to show off.
Yeah.
So I will.
Some of these things are so excited, they tried to jump out and leave.
They were excited to get a move on. It was honestly a little terrifying.
It's like that thing just grew legs. What?
I am very excited to talk about some products from ECOVACS. So ECOVACS has made some robotic vacuums, and I'm showing these off today. I've got before me the Deebot. Let's see, this is the Deebot T10 Omni, this large ECOVACS robot. And then this is the T9 Plus. So we're going to talk about the T9 Plus first, and then we'll talk about the T10 Omni because this is a monstrous, massive contraption. So let's talk about the T9 Plus. And with these robots, ECOVACS has done a great job of making some robotic vacuum cleaners that are cost effective, which I really like. Let me set down my computer here really quick. They're cost effective, which I really like, while still offering a lot of the functionality that you would get from some of the, the brands that are a little bit more expensive. So you get a lot of that same technology, but in a robotic vacuum that doesn't break the bank at least as much. So with the T9 Plus here, let's talk about the robot itself first. So you've got kind of you've probably seen a lot of these. You've got your standard robot vacuum here where it can run across the carpets and be able, to clean those. And so this has your standard roller brush and wheels, and these wheels are incredibly heavy duty, and I found them to be super grippy, which is great because I've got parts of the floor that are carpet, parts of the floor that are hardwood, and then you get two of these kind of wheel brushes with it. And this has some great functionality built in that I have found to be quite delightful. Inside of the device, you've got a nice dust bin, and this comes out so that you can clean it, but you don't have to clean it yourself very often. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And I like to, let me try to get that back in, that it includes a little brush tool here. This is always nice. So you can kind of brush everything out, but then it also has this little slider, and you're meant to slide that across the brush roll, and it will cut away the hair, which is really nice if you have, like I do, some dogs that might leave some of that behind. So with this, you do get the standard LiDAR that is built into the device at the top. And so there's a little thing spinning around inside of there that is sending out a signal, and then it's looking for it to bounce back to determine where it is in the room. So this does do room mapping. It has, they call it True Detect technology, which is kind of a mixture of different types of sensors, including, if I remember correctly, it does have on top of LiDAR, it also has some infrared technology that can help to not vacuum up things like Lego, or if you've got cables in the way, then it avoids those. And I have to tell you, one of the things that I really like about this one that I can't say about the more expensive one is I don't know what they've done with this one, but the smarts in it are really smart. I was able to place this and run it across vacuuming things, and it did not hit the dog bowls, which is something that I've had with previous robot vacuums, where it'd knock into the dog bowls, spill food and water all over the floor, and then it'd end up cleaning up that's food and water. This didn't do that. It knew it saw them and it moved out of the way, which was really nice. So it didn't make more of a job for itself. Now on the front here, you can see this is the True Detect technology, where it is sending out and sort of being mindful of what's in front of it. It's got some sensors on the side as well. And then this is sort of a bump sensor. So if there is something that it's having trouble seeing for whatever reason, then it'll bump up against this and know, oh, I need to back away. And then on the bottom here, there are sensors running along most sides of it that keep it from going. It's supposed to keep it from going off of ledges.
Yep.
I did have this sitting right near the edge. And so because I had a cleaning schedule set up, the cleaning schedule went right off the side of the very high table. So that was my bad. But it would have, if it had been able to come completely off of the sort of storage space that it's
most ambitious robot vacuum ever.
Like, please let me get started. Then I wouldn't have had that issue. One other really cool thing. So you can actually, I guess it's over here. So I'll talk about that in a second. One really cool thing is there are a couple of attachments. So it has one attachment inside right now on the front of it. And so you just click this button and then you pull out this slider. And here in the basic vacuuming configuration, you get this little insert that has kind of some fans inside that will suck air into the top and then send it out of the front. And the reason it does that is because you can buy these little air freshener pods.
Oh, nice.
And so this is cucumber and oak. You put the
nice. Smell like a spa.
It smells so good. You put that in there. It sucks air down in and blows it out the front as it's going around, and that way you get a nice air freshening scent as you. Oh, and it's talking to me. It's letting me know that I put the air freshener sensor in. Now, you get to choose between air freshener or if you want it to be a mop as well. So this is the mopping attachment. It has a little lip here that you lift up and you can put water into it. So this is a manual option to be able to fill it with water. And then on the bottom, it has this Velcro, or I guess I should say hook and loop fastener. And then you put the mopping pad on this surface, and you take the air freshener option out, and instead you slide this in. And when you slide it in, then it detects that you've put that in, and it's called the Osmo Pro. Or not the Osmo Pro, but the Mopping Pro. That's a different device. Yeah. And now it can both vacuum and mop the floor. So it will go around and it will do them separately. With those sensors that are detecting the stairs and also using the sensors on the front, it knows the difference between a carpet or a rug and the rest of the floor. So what's awesome is it will, let's say you've got a rug in the middle of your house, right? It will run up so that it gets up next to the edge of that rug while keeping the part of the device that actually has the mopping pad off of the rug.
Nice.
And will mop all the way up to the sides of that. And the way that this device mops is this device is kind of oscillating. So it sort of moves freely, almost like a sanding device.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that kind of moves back and forth and will literally scrub the floor.
Nice.
And then the one thing about this to be mindful of is you do have to wash these on your own. It's manually. You take off the pad, you rinse it. You can get two different kinds. There's a kind that is disposable, and you get like 10 of them in a pack. So it's a little bit like using a Swiffer or something like that, a Swiffer wet jet. Or you can get the kind that are washable, and so you just throw them in the wash after you're done using them for a while. And the app will actually alert you and say, hey, it's time to clean this out.
So using the wet features, if you will, with this robot, far as getting it installed, seems like it could potentially be a bit hazardous to its health. Did you find it to be an easy process to just, fill it up, slide it in? It's not an issue. You don't worry about splashing. It looks like it has plenty of protection in place because accidents can happen. Or
yeah. So the one thing it says is don't get so there's a little part where it pops in, and that's how it gets the power that it needs and sort of can send a message to this. So if that gets wet, you just wait for it to dry, or you could put a paper towel on it. But because of this sort of lip here, I've got a little water dispenser that has like clear or clean water, I guess. And so I can put that spout like right up to it. So I don't really get a lot of water all over the place.
Oh, you fancy.
So as long as you don't get a lot of water all over the place, so you could just, even with a regular faucet, just turn it on at a low stream, because this tank doesn't hold too much water.
Right.
And then once you do that, it just slides right in. And I have not had any issues with that. It kind of has its own little guide as you're sliding it in to guide it in.
Right.
And once you put this on, it will notify that, hey, it's got the mopping option in there. And so then it plans to mop. The other annoyance, I guess, that I have with this one is it does not like to charge with the mopping attachment in.
Okay.
So it does say, hey, now that I've returned to the charging base, please put in the air freshener.
Think that's a safety feature?
I think it's... I think it's a safety feature, but it's also a cleanliness feature.
Okay.
Because if the mopping pad is down to the ground, then it doesn't dry as well. Mold. So by making you take it out, you can set it. And what I just did was I just set it next to the base station, and then it was able to dry in the air. And then when I wanted to rinse it, I could. Now, I do want to mention that when it returns to its base, of course, there are I guess I shouldn't touch those because it is plugged in. There are the two charging bases, charging spots here. So this runs up onto the charging stand. And let me bring that over so we can do an overhead shot again, because I want to show you here. These two spots, these are not just holes into the bottom of the stand. Mm-hmm. These are two air vents. And what happens is, and this is what makes this thing great as well, is when this goes onto the charger and starts to charge, it will suck air. Well, actually, I believe it blows through one and then can suck it out of the other one. And so it will clean out the dust vent and send it up into a larger bag. Yep. That sits in the top here. So unlike the less expensive options that are out there where you have to get down and get into here and open up and try to take those out, this is going to do that for you. And then you just replace these. Actually, it keeps track of how long it takes to fill it up. And then you just replace these. So it's got like a paper or a cardboard rather slide in that slides in. And then this gets filled with stuff from your floor. And then after a period of time, you can go ahead and empty it out. Of course, there are all of these sensors and things that are, or rather, not even just sensors, but it's a place where it's emitting a signal from the base, an infrared signal, so that this knows how to properly align itself. And I will tell you, I've had problems with these in the past where it gets confused and doesn't quite go on to the spot as it's supposed to, and it jostles around and it's troublesome. I've not had any problems with this. They have a really good algorithm, it seems, for figuring out the mapping process.
I demoed a Deebot. Actually, I demoed a couple robot vacuums several years ago, and one of them was a Deebot, and then they had an update, and I think this was back in 2015 or so. It's been that long. And I wrote about it, and it was the Deebot D79. And I remember they introduced that feature that you're talking about. Well, once it goes on to the docking station, or what have you, it does the self-cleaning for emptying out the canister. Mm-hmm. And that totally blew my mind. It's like, wow, there's no more cleaning up the mess that I just cleaned up from the rest of
isn't
the
that
house.
Great? And
it put it in this big, huge canister. So it you didn't necessarily have to worry about emptying it right after that either. You could leave it in there for a couple of days or so and then, dump it out once a week or something like that. And that thing was so cool. And Deebot, they've come a long way, apparently, just from what you're showing here on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I have to say that is such a nice thing, because you're, the vacuum cleaner that I have, the sort of upright vacuum cleaner that I have, I can vacuum several times before I ever have to empty that container. Yep. And that was one of the sort of annoyances is I did want to have a schedule of the vacuum regularly cleaning, but then I had to remember every time to go and empty it out.
It was so pointless.
Yeah. So then it's like, I don't really want to do that. And the other thing is in a normal used household, especially one that I have dogs, and one of them is particularly fond of toys and likes to leave them strewn about the place. Then I had that concern that things were going to get zoomed up into the vacuum and then it was going to be stuck in the middle of the floor, blah, 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 blah. And this, with its object avoidance, does not have that problem. So it can just, okay, I see there's something there. I go around it. I don't get it sucked up into the vacuum. I found that I don't know what they've done to figure this out, but they have a really smart system for object avoidance.
And this actually came from our Discord. Take TyQ. I'm hoping I'm saying your name correctly, but it's a good question. And I'm not trying to be crass, but I wondered about this with the whole. Since I haven't seen a demoed one of these in damn near 10 years now, obstacle avoidance is one thing as far as not bumping into the walls, bumping into legs on chairs and things like that, avoiding Legos. But what about...
I know where you're going.
Yeah, but what about dog poop? I mean, that is a legit concern because sometimes accidents do happen. And I have a friend that had a robot. It clearly wasn't a Deebot. That it ran its schedule and it did a cleanup.
Oh, buddy.
But it didn't make it any better. I'll just leave it at that. Do you know if Deebot and their AI has addressed issues like this?
So the T9 Plus does not specifically call out poo avoidance. It does say detect and avoid unvacuumables like Lego, car keys, and move around those. But this one that I'm about to talk about does specifically it specifically calls out poo avoidance because it uses a more advanced algorithm and more advanced technology to be able to go around and do that. However, as I mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if this did avoid poo, this T9 Plus, because of how well it was able to avoid some things that I have had trouble with in the past, where it's bumping in and just spilling food everywhere.
Right.
I do want to mention the T9 Plus retails for $800. You can get on Amazon and Best Buy, but a similar vacuum like this from a more popular brand, I guess, or more well-known brand is easily $1,800. So that is actually quite a discount in terms of still having that functionality. And they also have within the app, every month they do these deals on the accessories that you can get. And so you get like a bunch of money off of the washing pads. And if you want to get their scents, new kind of air freshener scent and all that, they do a pretty good job of that as well. So that one's available for $800.
Nice.
Now, moving along to the Deebot T10 Omni. This is kind of a Rolls Royce of vacuums because not only does it do the emptying of the dust bin, but it also will clean, dry, and empty and fill the mopping that's involved with this. Dude, so
that thing has its own garage.
Yeah, it's got that's exactly it is a garage. It is. So this is one of the things that I was worried about. So in my kitchen in my home, there's like this little alcove that looks like it was for kind of like that's where the family PC goes, or that's where the you used to put the phone. And so there's this open space underneath where normally like you'd put a chair there and then you would like type on top of it or whatever. So that open space, this fit very easily. I was worried this wasn't going to. It ended up fitting, so it all worked fine because I like to have it kind of out of the way and it comes out and does it. So let me talk about this first. So it's about the same size as the Deebot T9 Plus in terms of overall sort of shape and size. The LiDAR sensor and the radar, or why can't I think of the term now? Infrared is similar. It also has that bump detection on the front, and on the bottom you do get the same kind of detection for making sure it doesn't fall downstairs or anything like that. You'll notice that the brushes are very similar. The wheels are very similar, but instead of the separate attachment for the mop like you have on the other one, in fact, I'll bring that back over. This is what slid into the T9 Plus. This has two microfiber wheels, and these are magneted in.
Oh.
So there's just two magnets on the back of this, and it just pops on very easily. So that means they pop off. So if you want to clean them by hand, you're able to do that really easily. You liked that.
Yeah. Dude, I'm all about just practicality. How quickly can I just pop this off and do what I need to do and put it back? Yeah.
The dustbin is pretty similar. The one thing that stood out to me, you'll notice there's no brush in here. What's going on there? This doesn't have a brush. So I was a little bit sad about that. I don't know why they didn't include a brush. Well, actually, let me take that back. There was a brush in the bag, but it did not, there's no storage place for the brush. So you have to remember where you put it. You got to store it somewhere. And I know these are all
I'm out.
These are all very first world problem complaints. But when you're talking about a device that's, upwards of 1K, these are things that you have to consider, especially when the less expensive one does have some of that built in. Now, the T10 Omni, the first thing I'll mention is that it has a voice assistant built in. You don't have to use it. And in fact, you'll notice I've got an orange light here. Well, it's probably hard to see, but this orange light means I don't currently have that turned on. The voice assistant is called Yiko, Y-I-K-O, and you say, okay, Yiko, and then you proceed to ask it to clean, to do whatever you want. Now, while I have it turned off because it was getting too many notifications, it was thinking I was talking to it too much. I understand why they've included this, and I think that it is overall a good idea. And that's because if you've ever tried to add a smart vacuum to your system, then you have noticed that it can be kind of difficult to get Amazon's voice assistant or whatever one you're using to actually do what you want it to do. You have to give it a nickname. Sometimes you have to say, ask this app to do this thing, as opposed to me just going, okay, Yiko, start vacuuming, or okay, Yiko, vacuum the living room. So without any extra setup outside of what you would normally do when you're using this vacuum, you can get those voice tools. That is pretty cool. Just for me, it ended up being too sensitive, and that's why I didn't like it turned on at all times, because it was going, if you're trying to talk to me, It's like, no, I'm not trying to talk to you right now. But again, I think that over time Eco is a relatively new thing for the ECOVACS system. So I'm not surprised that, in its first iteration, it could use some adjustments to the sensitivity. But let's talk about what's going on in the garage here. So I'm actually going to put this down on the ground for a moment. And in fact, we're going to have it run here in a minute, and we'll see some fun stuff. But let me put this down.
Somebody make sure Lily's hidden away.
Yeah, I guess she could chase it around. Actually, that'd be kind of cute. So what the garage is here is you get the docking station, and inside there are chargers, and this actually has some bumpers on the side that are helping to guide it in. But this has two things going on. Down at the bottom, there are sprays to actually, it will fill basically down in the bottom with a water bath. And then it fills with that water bath, and then the mopping pads will roll back and forth to clean them. And then it will suck that water out of the water bath up into the dirty water tank. And then it's ready to go again. Down here, you'll see this sort of opening here. If I hit this button underneath, and it opens up this compartment, and this is the compartment here. Let me bring it around so we can show over the top here. This is the compartment that holds the dustbin. Okay. So the dustbin goes in the bottom, but the magic, I feel, actually happens in the top, and we'll do this from the front because it's a little too close to the camera. Up here, we have two tanks. There's the clean water tank, and then there's the wastewater or dirty water tank. And so the cold water tank goes on the one side, and it will then, as I mentioned, take the water and put it down into the base and clean it out. And then that wastewater gets sucked up and put into the dirty water tank. So after about a week, you have to empty the dirty water tank. But what's great is that right in the middle, it also comes with a compartment where you can put their own. They have a cleaning solution that you can add to the cold water, but also a really nice brush. And this brush is extendable. Wait, let me see. There we go. So it can extend out, and you're meant to use this inside of the garage to clean out that that water bath after a while. So once, every couple of weeks, you clean that out and brush it clean to make sure that everything's good to go inside of there. And what I love about this is, well, I think that these built-in accessories are great because it means that, you don't have to furnish your own accessories in terms of how to clean it. It's kind of all built right in, so you just know what you're supposed to do. But then also, this down here has some hot. It's a fan, and it is also it warms. So what it'll do is after it runs, it will send heated air across those mop pads to dry them out. So you don't have that moistness just sitting there, getting dirty, growing germs, being nasty. It actually will dry them and make sure that the pads are ready to go the next time. Because my biggest concern with this whenever I first was testing it is this going to start going around and just spreading gross smells everywhere because those pads are going to be mildewy or whatever? And no, because it's drying it out, it doesn't do that.
Right.
So, all right.
Now, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You say they mentioned having their own solution for cleaning. I'm assuming that third-party solutions are totally fine, or did they DRM this?
They did not DRM it.
Okay.
Of course, they suggest that you use the first party, but I have, like Bissell makes a cleaning solution for its different like floor cleaners and stuff that I've put in there, and it was just fine. I wouldn't use like a very soapy cleaner because then that's going to like make a mess, but sort of light solution was A-okay, and it worked just fine. And I did not use their first party solution with this. Now, the other kind of cool thing about this this T10 Omni is that it is not just a vacuum cleaner. And I'm going to...
It's a Rolls Royce?
It's a Rolls Royce.
You said it was a Rolls Royce.
It is also a Rolls Royce. It does more than that. So I'm going to go into so here you can see this is what it looks like for the T9 Plus, where you enter smart cleaning with, and there's also the T10 Omni. And there are two options here: enter smart cleaning and enter video manager. So I'm going to tap on enter video manager. And then can we turn this off for a second? I think I can remember my password. So you have to set up a PIN in order to set up this feature. And then, now you can go ahead. What you're seeing here is the camera that is built into the front of the device. Now, what I'm going to try to do, I thought that there was a way to sort of joystick it around, but there might not be. Home patrol. There we go. So it's going to start patrolling around, and we'll get, and there's Lily. And so we'll get a view as right now it's just sort of figuring itself out, but it should start moving here shortly. Oh, it's trying to return home. So that is a little odd. There we go. So it's looking around for its home, which of course is way out of its view. So it's going, what in the world is happening here?
By your feet.
Yes. And it is moving around right now and looking for its home. What you can do with this is you can actually, it has a built-in microphone and speaker so that you could send out a message. So if I was trying to get in touch, then I could do that. You'll see that it just saw that there were some wires that it's like, oh, I don't think I can go over those. So it actually backed up, and it's going to go a different way now. And right now what it's doing is it's mapping out this new space. So you'll see in the top left corner, there's this blue that is kind of filling out. And that is because it's going, oh, I'm clearly not where I thought I was. So what the heck is going on here? And look, this is it kind of panicking a little bit as it's looking around. So yeah, here it is behind me going, where am I supposed to be going? I did not give it a fair chance. I will say that by telling it that it was not, that it was in a new space. So it does think right now that it's in the old space. And I think that's part of what's making it a little
I like
upset.
the idea that it said, holy moly, this is a bunch of cables. Let me run away from them.
So this is kind of a cool thing where I can say, hey, I want you to go to a different space. And so I can tap and say, hey, go here. And then it will move to that designated location. So this is great if you have mapped out like a living room or Yeah, I'm gonna have it stop for now. What I want, could one of you maybe take it out to that area, and then we could show it actually giving it a fair shot. So anyway,
out of the corner.
No one puts baby in the corner. In this case, that's the T10 Omni. If you had this set up in your home, you could say, hey, look, I want you to go into the living room area, and this is how I want you to do that. Oh, now we've got Lily sort of playing with it. But now it's kind of looking around, and you could use this. I was thinking about how you could use this if you had pets. And so this would be one way that you could check in on them if they didn't run away completely because they're going, what is with this? So yes, along with the kind of radar technology or the LiDAR technology that's built in, this is the T10 Omni, which has that extra feature. And that is what I will say, and I think that's what kind of makes me wonder if they maybe traded out having more of the other sensors in the front to have that camera built into it. And that's why it wasn't as good, because that's the one where I had they're metal food bowls, and they are reflective.
Right.
So I'm thinking it's not seeing that metal food bowl. And because the metal food bowl isn't heavy enough, then it isn't hitting the bumper sensors. So for some reason, the T9 Plus was able to avoid it, but the T10 was not. And I wonder if it's because those cameras are in the front instead.
That's an interesting trade-off, though. Makes you wonder, what was their testing procedures on that? Mm-hmm. Because again, those bowls are not very heavy for whatever dog have. Even if you have like a Mastiff like mine, the bowls are still fairly lightweight, and you just want to avoid it. So.
Yeah. So, and this, some of the newer technology that they have for the sensing is actually still in beta. Like they roll out new stuff all the time as they try to improve upon the algorithm. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets better over time. So the T9 Plus again retails for $800. The T10 Omni retails for $1,300. But again, if we look at comparable devices, they are far more expensive than that. And I don't know if I've seen one that also has a camera packed into it to give you kind of home patrol options if you want to check in on your home while you're away. So I think what they're doing is really clever. And I was really happy to get a chance to try these out and see what they were all about. The T10 Omni is like brand spanking new as of, I think, late last month. And then the T9 Plus, this specific version, the Plus version of it, also makes it brand spanking new, but the T9 has been out for a while. Both of them available on like Amazon and Best Buy and stuff. But yeah, these are some really, I think, incredible robotic vacuums that you don't have to maybe break the bank for while still getting that sort of more advanced technology in place.
You got to give them credit, though. Again, I reviewed an ECOVACS Deebot. Again, it's been almost 10 years ago, and here they are still iterating on their previous designs, and almost 10 years later says a lot.
Yes. So thank you for letting me take a moment to talk about those. Am I on?
Yep.
Okay, good. I guess it's just super quiet in comparison over there. But yeah, I've been wanting to talk about those since the embargo lifted. So it was great to get the opportunity to do so.
Nice.
I believe that is going to do it for us this week.
It is?
Yeah. Did time fly for you?
Does that mean I survived?
You survived. Take a breath. You made it.
Goodness. This was a lot of fun, sir.
Good. I'm glad. And thank you so much for taking some time out to join me today for Ask the Tech Guys. Thank you to those of you who have called in, to those of you who've sent in emails, to those of you who have sent in videos and everything in between. Thanks to those of you who just hang out in the Zoom.
It's cool seeing people hanging out in the Zoom there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It is fun. we are doing the show every Sunday. Next Sunday will be with Rosemary Orchard as my co-host. And then the Sunday after that will be with Scott Wilkinson. So looking forward to having them on as well. So, get your automation and iOS questions ready for next week. Yeah. And the following week, if you've got home theater questions, Scott will be here. Or if you just got questions about how to laugh in such a way that it just makes everyone's day better.
It's the best laugh on the internet, Mr. Scott Wilkinson, hands down. He is such a joy to talk to. And then when you get that laugh, it just makes you just feel warm and fuzzy on the inside too. He's such good people.
It does. That man. And thank you, Ant, for your expertise today and for hanging out. And we will see you, or I will see you at least, next week for another episode of Ask the Tech Guys.
Take care, everybody.
Listeners of this program get an ad-free version if they're members of Club TWiT. $7 a month gives you ad-free versions of all of our shows, plus membership in the Club TWiT Discord, a great clubhouse for TWiT listeners. And finally, the TWiT Plus feed with shows like Stacy's Book Club, The Untitled Linux Show, The Giz Fizz, and more. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. And thanks for your support.